What the Tech is brought to you by Text Expander. Text Expander helps you communicate smarter. Visit textexpander.com/podcast for 20% off your first year.
What the Tech?
Everybody, welcome to What the Tech. I'm Andrew Zarian. Of course, I'm joined by Mr. Paul Thurrott. How you doing, Paul?
I'm okay. How are you?
Hanging in there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
My God, this is, I guess this is the first full week of this somewhat quarantine, I guess, right? It's not shelter in place, but you're kind of advised not to do anything or go anywhere.
We're sheltering in place.
Oh, you are?
Yeah, but that's just a semantic kind of a thing. I mean, day to day, nothing has really changed. If you want to leave the house to get food, including at a restaurant that has to-go stuff,
Yeah.
you can do that. Obviously, you can go to like a CVS or a Costco or Walmart. Go for a walk.
Yeah. But you can't go to a bar. There's no bars. There's no restaurants.
No.
I think last week when we did the show, there was nothing. They were shutting everything down last week. But
that didn't happen until the Sunday night, probably. So.
Oh, really? So you had restaurants until this Sunday?
2 weeks ago. Yeah, 2 weeks ago today, we had a guy over at my house who might have the coronavirus. So,
oh no!
The night before that and the night before that, we were out at restaurants because we had someone in from out of town, and we don't normally go out during the week, but it kind of worked out because we didn't go out Friday night because we had been going out so much before, and then it ended. Sunday was the end of it. So so we're on like day 10 or 11, right now, I would say.
Oh my God! I mean, listen.
Yeah.
This is what it is. This is the hand that we're dealt, and in a couple of weeks, in a month, this will be hopefully gone.
Maybe a couple months.
Do you think so?
I'm thinking. Yeah.
You know what? I have a number in my head. I had a conversation with somebody because of my other job. I work for one of the largest hospitality groups.
So I don't mean to say like what will happen, but because the federal government, the states might do different things. But if you look at the math of this, if we do this for 2 months, we'll be on top of it.
Yeah.
And we'll see if we last that long. But I mean,
I'm going to give you my prediction based on speaking with experts. Now, listen, I'm not saying go based on what I've been told. I've been told this is from people within the city. They're looking at a restaurant opening date of May 6th, around that time.
Yeah, so it's about a month and a half.
They don't want to go beyond that. That's like
who's looking at this? What's
the powers to be? Whoever the committee is.
The owners of the restaurant?
No. The city. The state. Yeah.
State. Okay.
Most restaurant owners want to open today.
That would be a health disaster. That would you look at the curves of the cases and the deaths, and the reason we're going to flatten this thing out is because we're not around each other.
Yeah.
If we get in the room together, 10, 20, 50 of us, whatever, that thing's going to spike.
Listen, this is a hopefully a blip in the radar of history, really. This is going to be a couple months, and then you never know. Listen, Spanish flu. That went away in a couple of weeks. All of a sudden, they just didn't.
Right? Completely different kind of a problem, but in many ways, I mean, obviously, still a pandemic, but we're so much more interconnected these days.
Oh, tremendously, yeah.
And that's the thing. I mean, there's going to be. This is difficult because on a kind of a micro level, there are going to be people like you and I, normal human beings, who want to just go out and head to a restaurant or a bar and, or just go to someone's house and have a birthday party or go to a funeral or whatever, that's going to be a problem. But then there's going to be the whole travel thing too. There are people who are going to celebrate the end of this by flying immediately to France or Italy or China. Probably
So
not
I
China.
was
You
speaking to
know,
somebody that is sitting on a committee right now for the
yeah,
state, talking about what they're not even discussing currently, right? Like this is
right.
it. This they're not going to really go into this any deeper of a quarantine or things like that, but they are discussing what's life like after this kind
Yeah.
of passes, right? I
Hmm.
think the pros are in that category. They're talking about if you have a fever, you can't fly to
Yeah.
another country. If
Yeah.
you
Yeah. Yeah.
have a serious
Like they'll actually be screening. Yeah.
listen,
To
certain
determine.
countries do that. Israel does that. They take your temperature. There's a lot of other countries. Korea does that. Japan does that. Japan has one of the most strictest policies as far as going into the country. They take your temperature,
Which makes sense because that's an incredibly population dense society.
and I'm
And,
fine with that. We should do
and
that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Look, this is not a good thing, but hopefully there are some positive changes that come about as a result, behavioral changes, whatever,
As a
social change.
society, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Listen, people are disgusting. I take the subway every single day. I could tell you the stories. People coughing,
well,
people throwing up,
yeah,
people have
yeah, yeah.
fevers, they're sneezing. We have this idea that being sick shouldn't stop us. No, being sick should slow you down. If you're sick,
I,
I don't care if it's a flu or a
it
cold.
did. You can't fix stupid. Like the this is like my thing at the gym, which I don't get to go to anymore. I mean, even before this was a big deal, there'd be some big fat slob in front of me on a machine, sweating all over it.
Yeah,
And then he gets up and he just walks away. He doesn't clean the thing
yeah.
off.
You
And it's
told
like,
me
dude,
this
that's
last
gross. That's
week.
gross when everything's fine. But then you do it when there's a coronavirus thing going on around out in the world. It's like, seriously, like that's not gross. It's irresponsible. It's stupid.
Yeah,
And yeah, I don't know. I don't know how you fix enclosed spaces,
it's going to be a slow change, but I think
Yeah,
it'll be a change. So I mean, I don't want to. I did a
I know.
2.5 hour show last
In
night.
the
I did the
most
free for all.
depressing episode of What the
I
Tech
know.
Ever,
Yeah.
Paul and
Uh,
Andrew try to decide who's going to die first.
I did 2.5 hours on this yesterday on the free for all,
Yeah, I'm sure.
and I proceeded to get drunk. I drank.
Yeah,
I had my bottle of Jameson with me,
nice, nice.
fine
You didn't get
Irish
too
whiskey.
far into that. That's
I didn't know this is the second bottle.
okay. I was gonna say I could have
Yeah.
plowed through that thing.
No, this is the second bottle. Uh, so last night I'm a little hungover to be honest from this, but I'm here. We're going to talk about technology. There's a lot to talk about actually. I want to get your opinion on this because
Okay.
I've been my wife is in education. She's an
Right.
educator. She works for the Department of Ed here, and I've been noticing alarming situations where and by the way, this is in New York, right? This is every state is impacted by this. There
Oh,
is
yeah.
really no plan for at-home education. Zero.
Right. Of course.
And it's
No,
really
but that makes sense.
alarming. It does make sense because
Yeah, it's alarming because now we need it. But I mean, this is you don't have to be a psychologist or a psychiatrist or whatever to understand this part of human nature. We as people have a hard time doing limiting things today to benefit us in the future. It's like saving money. I often joke with my wife about what I call future Paul.
Mhm.
And the joke is always, you know how I feel about that guy. F that guy. The thing being like, I'm going to do what I need to do for me now, and I'm not going to worry about that guy in the future.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we do. And so when you if you were to go to a school anywhere in the country, here in Pennsylvania, there in New York City, wherever, and say, hey guys, you need to get ready because maybe there's going to be a global pandemic and people aren't going to be able to come in, and you still have to communicate with the students and have education and blah blah blah. And they'll be like, that sounds good. How much will that cost? They don't have any money.
Yeah.
They don't have money as it is, and so they can't. They're probably barely keeping it together in the best of
Well, New York
times.
City, their answer they're using Google Classrooms, which the
Yeah.
cost is not that high for this, right? There's
Well, right. I mean, but that's why they're using it.
That's why they're using it. So then the
Yes.
other thing is, okay, so what do you do with the kids
Yeah.
that don't have a way of using this, right?
Oh,
Because
geez,
we're living
of
in a
course. Yeah.
generation. Remember,
Yep.
it's not me. It's not your generation. It's not my brother. It's not
Yep.
my brother's friends. We're talking
Sure.
about a group of kids that their only device is this.
Right.
That is their only device.
Yeah. How do
So the
you?
city's response to that was, well, we got 1 million students. 350,000 of them need a device, right? Like, you don't
Right.
need to concentrate heavily on the kindergarten kids and the early education kids, but you need to get these guys a device. So what do we get? Should we get a laptop? No. Should we get a Chromebook? No. You know what we should do? Order over 250,000 iPads. And and
Well,
they have no idea what
sure.
they have to pay for these devices. They bought them with the idea that they can
Yeah.
negotiate after purchase.
Oh, jeez. So there's so many. It's not having money is a problem that snowballs. Obviously, and in the case of education, when you think about a school district that has chosen to go with the Google solution, like you said, which is common because they choose it because it's cheap to buy, but it's also cheap to support. Theoretically, what you don't need is to pay a bunch of high paid computer expert guys to manage a network and do all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. It's supposed to be so simple that the teachers can handle what they need to do for their own students, et cetera, et cetera. And maybe that works for some people and maybe it doesn't for others, but when it falls apart is now. So
Yeah,
no one's
exactly.
coming in. The kids and the teachers either have kind of a random way to communicate or no way to communicate, and now we have to improvise something on the fly. And now is the time when you need that expertise that you're not paying for, and that's how it hurts you. And I just look. You have kids. I mean, I have one child who's in high school and one who's in college, and it's really interesting to see the difference in the approach that both of those educational institutions have taken
So
to this
what are
thing.
they
Because
doing? I'm curious. What's
well,
the difference?
the thing they announced here in Pennsylvania when this started was that they have some system, and I don't know if it's Google Micro, I don't know what it is. It doesn't matter because they're not doing it. So they said, look, we have this system we have in place, and it was designed for people who are, homesick or something, and they can't come in for whatever. So we're gonna have everyone in the school. We're gonna take a week off, and then everyone in the school is going to switch over to this virtual thing, and we'll figure it out. And they had asked their teachers to come up with plans for teaching their students, et cetera, et cetera. But what they found very quickly was they don't have the capacity to
Mm,
stretch this thing out to all of the students.
yeah.
And so they gave up. They literally said, we're done. We can't do it.
Really?
Yeah. And if we can come back, if the coronavirus self implodes and everything's fine and it's April 15th or something and school starts up again, we'll just start it up again. And if it isn't, I guess the message is congratulations. In my daughter's case, you just graduated because we're done
So
with school.
that's what I was going to say. So in your daughter, I mean, your daughter's very smart also. So, but how about the
Yeah.
kids that were on the cusp of maybe not
Oh,
graduating?
listen,
They still had to take tests.
Andrew, everything that we've talked about so far, if you go back and think about everything we just talked about, you talked about people on a subway, people in school systems that don't have any money, and then the people in my school system, my daughter's school system, who don't have money. This is who gets hurt the hardest, the worst by this kind of problem.
Mm,
My daughter can come home and she has a choice of 27 laptops and online connectivity and blah
yeah.
blah blah, and she does whatever she does. I mean, it's not like she's all. I joked with her in the beginning, learn something today, in the morning, and ha ha ha. But I mean, the disadvantaged people are going to be further disadvantaged by this kind of thing. It's just a fact. And so, she'll go, hopefully she can go to school. I mean, that's another thing. Um, because she's supposed to start college in the fall, and when that's something we normally really look forward to, and now it's like something we're kind of dreading, and we don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And then, unfortunately, in her case, just as on a kind of a personal thing, I mean, there's a prom that's not going to happen probably, and there's a graduation ceremony that's absolutely not going to happen. So she's being robbed of those things as well. And then my son, just quickly, I mean, my son's at RIT, which is the Rochester Institute of Technology. You will not be surprised to discover that college does have the infrastructure they need to teach online. And
Yeah.
they took 1 week off and they came back. I don't know if it was this past Monday or last Monday, but they're doing all their classes virtually now. And so they're not, I don't think they're live. I think they're recording them, and then the students can watch them, when they can. And then they still do homework and whatever. So his school is continuing, and my daughter's school, the school here, it's the Emmaus High School, so it serves, a dozen maybe townships in the area. It's huge.
Yeah.
I equate it to the size of something like Brockton High School back home in Massachusetts. I don't know what to call. I don't know where other people are like. It's a really big school, and it just shut down. It's just we just can't teach. So
It's wild.
it's
It's
crazy.
scary. But
Yep.
the other thing, the positive from this, again, not to harp on all the negative, but I think a lot of businesses are realizing that telecommuting is a real possibility
Yeah. Yeah.
for employment.
Yep.
I was speaking to someone that he's looking to take his firm
Hmm.
and make half the staff work from home going forward.
Yeah.
Now, the
So we.
negative for that, the negative is,
Yeah.
let's say, I'm just throwing a number out here, and this is one of his ideas. This is what he was thinking. He goes, "Well, what I could do is, let's say I have a guy that gets paid $100,000 a year to come to work.
Right.
I could say, you know what? I'm going to change the position. You're going to get paid $75,000 to
Right.
work from
But you don't have to
home,
come to work.
but you never have to come to work. And with the money that I'm saving, I could hire another 2 or 3 people on staff."
Yeah. 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 Yep.
I definitely see that happening. I think that's
I
going
do
to be
too.
a major thing. Listen, for you, and I mean for me, for almost 10 years I work from home, right? Because I had my own business. You've been
Sure.
working remotely majority of
Oh,
your adult
yeah.
life.
Yeah. Over
So
25 years. Yeah.
25 years. So for us, it's a norm. We know how to work, but there's going to be you talk about the business space. There's going to be
Well, you mentioned.
seminars and courses on how to work from home. There's going to be a whole business that opens up from
Yeah,
this.
yeah. Oh, yeah. They're already. You can already see it springing up. But last week you were talking about this guy that you knew who had a really hard time with people not coming into the office, and those dinosaurs getting killed off. I
Yep.
mean, this is that's over, and it's like so many things else, and so many other things in life that we just accept as normal. They're kind of like these traditions, and they're really not that long lived. Like it's not like man has been coming into work from 9 to 5 for 30,000 years. I mean, we can't change that.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's not that old. It's really not that old at all. And, and there are lots of indications. I think we touched on this. Our schedules are unhealthy for us as adults and kids. I hope for your kids that they're able to benefit from something my kids never benefited from and will never benefit from, which is as you become older as a child and you start becoming an adolescent and a teenager, you need to sleep more and you need to sleep later. And the school system is set up so that you go in earlier every milestone as you move forward, right? So when you
Yeah.
go from grade school to middle school to high school, the start time is earlier. It should be later. And hopefully, as part of this giant rethink about the way we do things, that will be one of the things that gets addressed
Well,
too.
here in New
Yeah.
York, how when I was in high school, right? I mean, you're going back, oh my God,
Yeah.
2001. So you're going back almost 20 years. When I was in high school, because I graduated '02. So
Yeah.
we would have split schedules because the school had over 4,000 students. So what they would
Right.
do, they would give you an option. So you would either have morning classes, you would come in at like first period and go till later, or you could
Hmm.
come in way later and go later. So my I think my sophomore year, I went in periods 1 through 9. So I had an entire day. I would go in at like
Sure.
7 o'clock and leave at 4 o'clock or 3:40. But my
Hmm.
senior year, I had 2 classes, 3 classes. I would
Yeah.
go in at
Nice.
7 and be done by 10:40.
That's the best.
It was great. I was working.
Yeah.
I used to go out. It was a whole day.
Sure.
So, but you had an option of doing later or earlier, depending on how your guidance counselor was set up. I
Right.
think that's
Right.
great. Give students an option.
I used to, when I went to high school, and this was in the 1980s, but I mean, there were stories back then about earlier generations who had gone to that school, and it was an open campus at one point, and that
Mm.
kind of meant a couple of things. It was a little bit like what you just said,
A lot of
but
cigarette breaks.
also, yeah, they could leave. So in other words, if you had a class in period 5 and then the next class was period 7, you could just leave.
Yeah.
So you could go to McDonald's and get lunch or something, and and they stopped doing that. I'm sure it was a problem, kids not coming back or whatever. But um, again, I'm not saying that's the right way to do things. I don't even understand fully what they did do, but I really do believe across the board we're going to change a lot of habits because of what's happening.
Yeah. To kind of go into this, guys, by the way, if you enjoy the show, obviously we have no ads right now because we have just one ad in the opening because everybody's pulling out. If you want to support the show, this is the time you could do that by going to patreon.com/whatthetech. You can fund us there as little as $1 per episode, and it keeps us chugging along, especially during the next 8 or so weeks when we don't know what's happening. So Patreon really comes into play there, and we greatly appreciate it. We're going to do a bonus show right after this where we talk about pretty much anything and everything, pretty much just like the show. We just give you an extended bonus cut of this. Patreon.com/whatthetech. Also, go to Thurrott.com. Sign up for Thurrott Premium. You could go there. You could upgrade to your to a premium account. You get 35 years of trusted coverage. You get access to all sorts of our articles, $55 annually, $7 a month. It's a great website, great articles. Paul's constantly putting out great stuff on there. Highly, highly recommend it. Thurrott.com. Sign up for the premium service. I want to talk to you about a few things. I'm just trying to see what I'm going to go to first. I want to talk about what you think of the iPad getting a trackpad now.
Yeah.
It's fascinating because for the longest time, I saw a lot of these articles recently, but for the longest time, everybody was saying how Microsoft's approach to the tablet was not the way to do it, right? What they should have done was had their own version of a tablet, and I still believe that there was a market for this at the time. Now, Apple has gone backwards. They're taking the Surface approach where they're saying, hey, listen, this is a convertible. This is not just a tablet. This is more than that.
Yeah, but it's still not exactly the same as the Surface approach because what they've done is they've built up their mobile OS. They didn't take the Mac OS and bring it down to a tablet, right? So that's still fundamentally, and that's been kind of the big question, which approach made the most sense, right? To build something small and light up with functionality, or to take the complex, powerful thing, Windows or the Mac, and kind of tear it down so they could run more efficiently on mobile hardware. So Apple there is a really curious company. They talked about the post PC world 10 years ago. Remember, it was 10 years ago that they introduced and then
2010.
released the first
Yep.
iPad, the iPad, right? Um, and the iPad has never really met the needs of that post PC world because Apple has held it back. Eventually, they released keyboard support for it. They have a keyboard cover now for the iPad Pro and for the smart keyboard. I think there's a version for the iPad, the regular iPad too, if I'm not
There
mistaken.
is a smart, yeah.
Yeah, but third parties, make them as well. But of course, you use something like that, and you're like, yeah, it's fine when I need to, if I'm just typing or whatever, it's good. But you need that mouse pointer thing. You need mouse trackpad support, and I don't know. I would have bet money that Apple would have never done this. I mean,
Adding a trackpad.
Yeah, they're so weird about things,
Yeah, but here's
And
here's where this changes, right? It's gonna be
Mhm.
it's a $300 keyboard.
Well,
That let's start off with that.
but hold on a
$299 for
second.
the 11-inch variant and $349 for the 12.9, the 13-inch variant. So this is not a inexpensive device.
No, well, but hold on a second. That's the pro version of what Apple does, and it's the only one for which they provide their own keyboard cover with a trackpad. You can connect any Bluetooth trackpad to it. Um, Anyone, a third-party company, could make a peripheral that was a cover with a keyboard and a trackpad built in. So, yes, the Apple one will be $300 or whatever. Apple things are expensive. That's what we're not going to be shocked by that. Um, but Logitech or whoever makes these things can come out with a $129 version. And
Yes, absolutely. But
right.
this is Apple targeting a very when
Well,
I'm thinking as Apple. I'm not saying that I'm not thinking as a consumer, right? Apple is targeting a very specific user to purchase a $349 trackpad with their
yeah, yeah, they
iPad.
are. But that's not the extent of that market. So if you think about a $1,000 iPad Pro with a $350 keyboard trackpad cover thing,
Okay, MacBook Pro.
$1,350.
Yeah, the
Well,
MacBook
I mean,
Pro.
that's the price of a premium 2-in-1 convertible whatever. I mean, that's an HP
Yeah.
Spectre X360. That's a Microsoft Surface, whatever. It's a MacBook Air, MacBook Pro, whatever. I mean, it's the same price as all of those things.
Yep.
But the other thing you could buy is a $300 iPad, 9.7 inch, whatever it is today, and some third-party keyboard cover in the near future that costs $150. And now you're talking under $500. And what does that compete with? A Chromebook? Well, great.
Yeah.
So if that thing works as well as I believe that it does, because I've tested it, um, that's a much better computer. It's a weird thing to say than a Chromebook. Much better computer.
Oh, yeah, because you have essentially everything is there, right?
Right.
What's curious to why I'm curious about this device,
Mhm.
about the trackpad support being blatant, right? Because we had it before with accessibilities, and you could technically set up
Yeah, but
a
this is
mouse
actually much more sophisticated than
way
what they
more,
had.
way more.
Yeah, way more. It's really
So
neat.
this is Apple not diving headfirst and doing a slow deployment of features. This
Right.
to me means, the next incarnation of this operating system will not be what we know of it today. There's going to
So,
be real
yeah,
multitasking with different applications open. This is the end goal for this, where iOS, iPadOS becomes
right. In other
a
words,
standardized operating system and not a
this
mobile operating system.
this is why they made this split. Yeah. So, I think the Apple of the think about how they introduced things like the keyboard cover, with the smart key, whatever they call that, smart keyboard, or the Apple Pencil, right? The first time that those things came out, they came out only for the iPad Pro. They were fairly expensive, and that's Apple. I mean, that's how Apple does things. But over time, they made them or versions of them available for the lower end iPads as well. And so when you flash forward to today, just a couple of years really, but whatever, they introduced mouse cursor and mouse and trackpad support. They just put it into iPadOS. You could today, with a Bluetooth keyboard and a mouse, use any iPad and use the mouse cursor, and it would work. It works. It's fine. That honestly for Apple, that's a huge change. That's not the way they do things. Is not the way they've ever done anything. So,
Yeah.
yes, they don't have I don't know what they're calling it, the Magic Keyboard cover or whatever it's called for the low end iPads. And maybe someday they will. Maybe they don't feel like they need to. Who knows? It doesn't really matter. But um, so there is that little bit of exclusivity. But the fact remains. I mean, we when you look at sub $500 computers, there is a sea of crap. In fact, I wrote an
Hmm.
article about this last year. You cannot buy a computer under $500. It's
But you
worth
know
a
what
damn.
you can buy under $500? A phenomenal TV from Hisense.
Okay. Okay. All right. But I mean, but you can buy an iPad, which is a phenomenal tablet, and you can get soon. Again, this doesn't exist today, but you could get a keyboard case thing with a trackpad in it. I'm sure this is coming. It's coming by the holidays.
Yeah.
And this makes the nonsense that Apple's been talking about for 10 years all of a sudden real, for a lot of people. So they've done a neat they've done a neat thing. I have to tell you, you can't really see them, but up behind me over here is a stack of computers. And one of the things I've been doing recently is bringing machines online and getting them up to date and blah blah blah. And I've been playing around with some Chromebooks, and as much as I understand the point of it and how it can work for people, and I find them incredibly limiting every time I use it. Every time I'm like, there's something about it, and I really feel like the iPad is not going to feel like it is not doesn't give you that same sense of limit.
Mm.
Um, I think it's a better computer than a Chromebook, and I think they're going to see great success with this.
Well, it's also it's not foreign. It doesn't
Yeah,
feel foreign to somebody that picks it up. Being in
right.
North America, we have a very skewed iOS usage compared to the
Yeah,
rest of the world.
sure.
And to many people, this is what they know. If you have an iPhone, you know what an
Well,
iPad is like, and you're going to be very comfortable with this. I'm just very curious what the next evolution of this operating system is, because in its current form, this is not
I
what a trackpad is intended for.
Well, okay, but the way they've done it is it's very it's amazing how natural it feels. So I think the broader point here is that for most people, the phone does everything that they need, with a couple of exceptions, and sometimes you just need to. People maintain like an old computer in a corner in the kitchen or something, or in some spare room, and every once in a while, when they have to do something big, screen, whatever, they'll crank this thing up again and
Hmm.
they'll look at whatever it is. And so the iPad is interesting because it's a modern device. It's something they'll want to use otherwise. It's a secondary device. It's
Yeah.
familiar because maybe they already have an iPhone, or at least they understand how these things work. And it's an elegant device. And in this case, it's not a particularly expensive device, but they do have this range of them. And if you're a high powered executive or a business traveler or a C-level executive, whatever it is, I mean,
Hmm.
an iPad Pro is a beautiful machine. It doesn't cost anything more than a really nice PC or Mac.
Yeah.
And it does everything that most people need. I know it doesn't solve every problem. It's
But
not
you
for
know what?
programmers.
You know what they could do very easily. You
Mhm.
want to get into enterprise, you want to kind of get into the corporate world or workspace, because right now, listen, I can't use an iPad as my everyday device. It's
Oh,
very
I can't
difficult
either.
for me.
I
But
will never be able to.
you know
Yeah.
what? What if, slowly they're easing into this? What if when you connect the monitor to it,
Oh,
it
that
creates a desktop for you? Now you
it
have a
already
desktop and it gives you a whole different user interface because you got a
oh,
monitor
it does.
connected to it.
You can already connect a monitor
You
to it, but it
can.
doesn't it doesn't, yeah, give you the desktop, yeah.
But you know what?
We'll
That's
see.
an easy solution for them.
I guess. I mean, they might not have to. I mean, if they maintain the Mac as kind of a workstation class machine, it will be there for those developers that need Xcode. It will be there for those designers that need the high-end Adobe tools. It will be there for gamers, maybe, or whatever the other uses are of these things. That's fine. To me, they've just kind of moved the lines. The iPad it's occupied a very specific thing. Remember, the way Steve Jobs described it, he said, "What if there was like this other device?"
Hmm.
And it sat between these two other things. Like, what would be the point of it? And the point he said at the time was it had to do certain things really well. And he made this list. I don't know, 10 items: email, web browsing, blah, 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 whatever it was. Um,
And it
the
did
thing
those
that has
things really
shifted,
well. Yeah.
yeah. Well, the thing that's changed since then is whatever those 10 things would be today, they're roughly the same list, right? Those things are actually better done on mobile than they are on PCs for most people. The
Mhm.
things that are on the PC are kind of these esoteric, nichey kind of things, Like I need to work with a really big spreadsheet that has macros in Excel. And it's like, okay, well, you're going to need a PC. That's just um, but for most people, that sweet spot of everything they need is suddenly going to be satisfied by this type of device. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't overstate how big of a change this could be. I mean, nothing is certain in these days for sure, but and you like you said, you're not going to switch this thing. I'm not either, but we're not normal.
Yeah. We use
We do
PCs
very
very differently.
specific things. Um, but most people could absolutely, and most people would probably want to have the simplicity of a device like that rather than a PC or Mac, which are powerful but complex.
Yeah. Listen, I think right now we're in, again, it's a transitionary device.
Yeah,
They have decided the direction they want to go in it, which is a positive. I'm not saying it
right.
as a negative. I think they are in the position of, we need to figure out what the next evolution of this thing is. Um, you got you still have Mac OS. How are you going
Yeah.
to bridge the two? And obviously, over the next couple of years, you're going to see a bridge. You're going to see this change.
You know what I wonder sometimes is they must have announced, when did they announce Catalyst? Like a year and a half ago, something like that. And
Catalyst was, yeah, maybe, yeah, a year and a half.
yeah, probably, maybe it was WDC 2 years ago, and then I think that fall they did like just some Apple apps, and then the next year they were going to do like make it available to everyone. And then what happened was nothing happened, right?
Yeah,
Like they're as interesting and obvious as it is to run iPad apps on a Mac. This has not proven to be very successful.
it has not, and I have to tell you, those apps do not run great. And I'm going to
Okay,
tell
but
you, something. And a lot of people are talking about this. Yeah, you got
yeah,
the stock app, you got the news app. That's fine because Apple created it. But
right.
attempt to run the Twitter app. I
Yeah,
dare
yeah,
you.
yeah.
I dare you. You know what's going to happen? Your CPU is
Okay.
running at a much higher rate than running a regular app, and your battery life plummets. If I'm running this app, and I've tested on multiple machines, if I'm running that
Right.
Twitter app, my battery plunges.
Anyway,
Okay, they're
you're
sorry. I had
no, I mean,
I
but I mean, I think the point is, it is possible that that failure is what led Apple to do this thing they could have done 5 years ago. And
very possible.
I bet there was some notion that we can bridge the gap between these two things. And then
Yeah.
when Catalyst happened and it didn't happen, Apple must have said, "All right, let's go to Plan B. We're going to do the cursor thing," you know. And this will because the problem from Apple is this will replace the Mac
Yeah,
for a lot
big
of
time.
people,
Yeah,
you know, and
especially
they don't
yeah.
take that step lightly, right? So, um,
MacBook Air or this, that's going to be the choice for a lot of people.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And if this is good enough, this is a much better choice than a MacBook Air. As good as a MacBook Air is, for a computer. But I mean, that's what I mean. That's why I think the Catalyst thing might have played into it because Apple would not give up that, unless they had to.
Listen, here's a great thing:
And
MacBook Air or this, right? MacBook
mhm,
Air is not touchscreen.
right,
You're still running desktop applications, which you may not be able to run certain things that you want to because it's not a very powerful machine.
right.
It's still the traditional form factor of a PC, technically. But on the iPad side, all these applications are made to run properly. For the most part, especially if you buy a
Well,
newer
you
one.
get a desktop browser on iOS or iPadOS,
Yeah,
which is great.
you got a trackpad, you
Um,
got the keyboard, you have
yeah, I mean,
iMessage, you have everything that you have on your
yeah,
phone.
whatever you're using at school or work, if it's Word or Google Docs or Apple's whatever they call it, you know, all that stuff works. It's fine. It works good. Um, it's all there.
Yeah,
Cloud storage integration is there. It hits all the high points. And then, you're on a business trip and you flip the cover back and you watch a movie because that's where everyone's got their content anyway
mhm.
already. And all your games are there. And it really is, we call these things personal computers, but it isn't, the iPad is way more personal. It's in many ways the only computer that's not a phone that is that personal, and because it integrates with all that stuff you're already doing if you are an
Yeah.
iOS guy.
Did I
Uh,
did I tell you that I don't know if I spoke about this. Apple replaced my 2017 MacBook Pro again.
again,
Okay. So
what do you mean?
my keyboard, I don't know if I spoke about that. My keyboard just stopped working.
Yeah,
Right? All the keys just died. I mean, it was like I was typing on mush. Nothing was happening. So when I went to Apple, they said, "Oh yeah, they don't call it a recall. They
right.
called it a quality assurance program. I qualify for it at no cost."
Neat.
So the way they replace it with this quality assurance,
Mm,
they got rid of they changed my display. The entire display is brand new. So the front and the casing is new, the display is new.
yeah,
The keyboard, they can't swap the keyboard, so they give you that whole piece swapped
right.
out, and the battery's replaced as well.
Yeah, so it's a new computer.
It's a brand new computer.
Is what it is. Yeah.
They just and it took them 2
Sure.
days to give this back to me. And I'm thinking, how many for Apple's
Yeah.
sake, right? How much has this cost them as far as and listen, they're not suffering here, right? But how much money has this cost them from
Well,
2016 to today to have to replace because they can't replace keyboards, they're replacing everything.
it's not just
If
that, dude. It's like how many people didn't buy these things because of all the reports about how crappy the keyboards were. And, I obviously they're working now to replace them with the normal butterfly keyboards. But again, we got this thing over here in the corner, super reliable,
super reliable, and guess what? If you have a keyboard
simple.
problem, you could buy a different keyboard.
Yeah, it unhinges. You could just do whatever you want with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
It's a modular approach, which is bizarre to think about for Apple's sake, right? Because they're not very modular.
Yeah, listen, if I'm lucky and we get to travel for business again, I have no doubt I'm going to witness something I have witnessed once in the past, which is some goon is going to sit down at a press table and he's going to put a little stand down on the desk. He's going to put a little iPad on the stand. He's going to pull out a keyboard and now he'll have a mouse and he'll have this like multi stupid thing. And all he's doing is everything everyone else is already doing on a single laptop device. But, you know, instead of that stupid future, not going to be surprised to see someone flip open it'll be a keyboard cover thing instead, and it'll be an iPad,
Yeah.
and that's when it starts to make sense. You
Yeah.
know?
And we're not too far away from that. By the way, Apple also
Mm.
redid the MacBook Airs,
Yeah,
which we didn't talk about, and they made it a little thicker. So the keys are now thicker keys, much
and
like the
it's the keyboard from the 16-inch MacBook.
yeah,
So
from the new one. So by the way,
yeah,
that keyboard is phenomenal.
yeah,
I have
yeah.
it. I have it in my office. It's a great device. It is not it is not a portable laptop. Let me just tell you that that thing is
No,
gargantuan in size. It's bigger than this one, and this one is huge.
the
Uh,
15 was already not portable. I mean,
it's heavier. It's bigger.
that thing should come with like a strap and wheels so you can drag it around.
I feel like
You
I'm
know?
going to a LAN party
Yeah, exactly.
with that thing.
Right.
Uh,
You can use it for
so
shade if you're at the beach. Just prop it up behind you.
you know what I use it as? I go to the beach and I use it as one of these.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I
exactly.
get my tan
Except God help
from
you
the
if you
aluminum.
fall asleep, you're gonna kill yourself.
Yeah, I'm like Paulie Walnuts in The Sopranos, just
Yep.
tanning in front of the pork shop.
Right.
So listen, it is what it is. I did want to ask you about Huawei. On Thurrott.com right now, the
Yeah.
main story is the new Huawei phone and how the Huawei P40 series. It's all about the camera.
Yeah, so you know what
This,
today is, March 26th. This is the day that they would have announced this
yeah.
at an in-person event in Paris. Coincidentally, I was supposed to fly to Paris tonight, by the way, to celebrate my 30th anniversary.
Oh,
So
congratulations.
yeah, thanks. It's been great. Um, but they had a virtual event instead. Obviously, no one's going to an event anywhere. So yeah. The other thing that this phone is missing, of course, is Google Apps. So
Yes. No
uh,
Google Apps. Yeah.
that's a little bit of a problem. But yeah, it's likely. I mean, based on my experience with the P30 Pro, which I still use to this day for product shots and stuff, such an awesome camera. Um, it's probably, I don't have one, but I mean, I hope to. But I mean, it's probably the single best smartphone camera you can get today.
You know what's interesting? So I if you go to what is it? DxOMark, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
If you go to their website, I've
Yep.
I went there yesterday and I was blown away at where Apple and Samsung are on the list of phones as far as
Okay.
camera quality goes.
Yep.
They're
Where are
not
they?
even in the top 5.
That's funny.
Oppo Find X2 Pro is the best camera phone. The
You know those guys.
Xiaomi Mi 10 Pro is second. Huawei
Right.
Mate
Mate
30
30 Pro.
Pro,
Interesting. Hmm.
Honor V30 Pro, Huawei Mate 30 Pro again. I guess it's the same. So we could kind
I
of
actually think
take
the
away some of
P30
these.
Pro is a better camera than the Mate 30 Pro, but
What do you
that's
think of the
whatever.
X2 Pro? The Find X2 Pro,
The what now? Oh,
the Oppo.
I've never even seen one.
But fascinating. That's the best camera phone on the market.
Yeah, yeah.
Very interesting because Apple scores. Let's see what this one is. It's a 124 for photo, right? This phone
I
is a
mean,
134 for photo, which is fascinating.
yeah. It's weird. The Samsung Galaxy Note 10 Plus and the iPhone 11 Pro Max have the same score. Um, I don't, I don't know that I would. I own both of those, and I would not rate those the same. But
You know what you
whatever.
don't have on this list?
Most of it.
A Galaxy S10. What is the
S
Galaxy S20? What is
S20.
the S20? It's not
S20.
even
Yeah,
on
they haven't.
here.
Yeah, it's not reviewed yet.
That's
I
bizarre.
suspect that would be pretty. That would be above the. That would be in the top 5. I bet.
You think above the iPhone?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yep.
Very
Yeah. In
interesting
fact,
that
I
Oppo.
was working on my own review of that today.
You really have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Apple's 5th place, 6th
Yeah.
place. If you eliminate, the variant models. But it is interesting how the 5G version has a higher camera score than the regular version. So there was some modification for some of these
Yeah.
phones.
I remember that being the case when that at the time. I don't know why that is.
Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah.
Um, but there's no Google services on this thing, and it's selling for $1,400 on the
Yeah.
P40. Uh, Obviously, it's not going to make a big deal here in North America, but for the rest of the world, this possibly is a big deal.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very interesting. Anything I'm missing here before we wrap it up?
As far as like big news stuff,
Yeah. Life? Anything?
life.
Life?
No, I mean,
Actually, I do want to talk to you on the bonus show about
mhm,
Hello Mint
yeah.
and Goodbye Fi. So I'm assuming
Yeah.
you left Google Fi to go to Mint. I'm a
Yeah, I will
big
be.
Mint.
I will. I
Okay.
will be.
I'm a big Mint fan. I have been for a long time. I'm curious why
Okay. Oh,
you're
good.
going there.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
Mhm.
Anything else we could talk about on the bonus show? I want to do a quick show today.
Yeah.
I've done so much content over the last couple days. Tomorrow I got to do more shows. I
Sure.
did the free for all. That's back. I know a lot of OG GFQ fans will be. You've never been on the free for all, right?
No.
Oh, you got to call into that show. It's a total shit show. We
Sure.
just get drunk and yell at each other.
Yeah. All
It's a
right.
phenomenon. It's a great place to be, especially when you're
Andrew,
quarantined.
you ignorant slut.
We should definitely do that. All right, guys. If you're watching this, if you're listening to this, go to patreon.com/whatthetech. You could join the bonus show. You could access the bonus show. We're going to do a little bit more content today. Try to get as much out as possible. I'm approaching that time of year where my studio is on fire. It's 90 degrees right now.
It's already.
It's
Is it
already.
warm out?
uh,
I'm
You know what?
hoping
It's not
to.
super warm, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, it's 60 degrees, 56 degrees right now. So
It's supposed to be 60 today.
yeah.
63 tomorrow.
Yeah. So we'll see. All right, guys. See you next time. Take care.